The house settled into silence the way it always did after 10. The television was off. The dishwasher had finished its low hum. Outside, a single streetlight flickered, throwing pale shadows across the living room walls. Sarah Bennett sat at the kitchen table with a warm mug between her hands, not really drinking it. She stared at nothing, letting the quiet fill her ears. She liked this hour, even though it made her think too much. During the day, life moved fast enough to hide the small cracks. Work emails, rides to school, grocery lists, homework checks. At night, there was nowhere to hide. Mark had gone upstairs early again. He said he was tired. He always said that now. Sarah had nodded, as she usually did, and watched him disappear down the hallway without touching her shoulder or asking about her day. She told herself not to read into it. People got tired. Marriages went through phases. That was normal. Still, the silence felt heavier than usual. A soft sound pulled her attention away from her thoughts. Footsteps, careful ones. Sarah looked up and saw Noah standing near the hallway entrance. It was half in shadow, half in light, as if unsure which space he belonged in. He was 13, almost 14. No longer a child, not quite a man. His face still had softness, but his eyes had grown serious over the past year. He wore a gray hoodie and jeans, his shoulders tense, his hands buried deep in his pockets. Sarah straightened in her chair. "Hey," she said gently. "You should be in bed." Noah didn't move closer. He just stood there, breathing slow and uneven. "I know," he said. His voice was quiet but firm. "Okay, I need to talk to you." Something in his tone made Sarah's stomach tighten. She set her mug down. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Noah nodded once, then shook his head. He took a step forward and stopped again. The overhead light caught his face now, and Sarah saw how pale he looked. "Can we sit?" he asked. Sarah pulled out the chair across from her. "Of course." Noah sat down slowly, like he was afraid the chair might break under him. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on a small scratch in the wood. He had made that scratch years ago with a toy car. Sarah remembered being annoyed at the time. Now it felt like a memory from another life. They sat in silence. Sarah waited. She had learned as a mother that silence often helped more than questions. Noah swallowed. His jaw tightened. "I didn't want to say anything," he began. "I really didn't." Sarah kept her voice calm. "You can tell me anything." He took a breath, then another. "I saw Dad." The word Dad landed softly, but it carried weight. Sarah nodded. "Okay, I wasn't spying or anything," Noah said quickly. "Swear, I was just walking home from practice." "What kind of practice?" Sarah asked, more to ground him than out of real confusion. "Basketball," he said. "Coach let us out early." Sarah waited again. Noah's fingers pressed into the wood. "I was cutting through Maple Street Park. You know, the one with the old swings?" Sarah's heart skipped, just once. "Yes." She said, "I saw Dad there," Noah continued. "At first I thought he was waiting for someone from work or something." Sarah felt a strange heat behind her eyes. She focused on Noah's voice, on the rhythm of it. "But then he said there was a woman with him." Sarah didn't react. She didn't gasp or lean back. She didn't want to scare him into stopping. Noah glanced up, checking her face, then looked back down. They were sitting close, too close. Sarah's grip tightened on the edge of the table. They weren't doing anything bad. Noah rushed to say, not like, "Nah," like on TV. But she was laughing and Dad was smiling. A real smile. The kind he used to have. Sarah felt that one land deep. She touched his arm, Noah said, and he didn't move away. The kitchen felt smaller, as if the walls had leaned in. Sarah forced herself to breathe. "How long did you watch them?" she asked softly. "Not long," Noah said. "It's just enough to know it wasn't nothing." He finally looked at her then. His eyes were shiny, full of worry, not judgment. "I didn't want to believe it," he said. "I waited, hoped I was wrong." Sarah reached across the table and placed her hand over his. His fingers were cold. You did nothing wrong, she said. Noah shook his head. I felt like I was keeping a secret from you. That hurt more than anything else he had said. Sarah squeezed his hand. You were protecting me, she said. I know that. Tears filled Noah's eyes, but he didn't let them fall. I didn't know when to tell you, he said. Waited until Emma was asleep. I waited until Dad went upstairs. He paused. I waited until it was quiet. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She saw Mark laughing in the park, sitting on the same bench where he had once asked her to marry him. She opened her eyes again and focused on her son. Thank you for telling me, she said. Her voice was steady, even if her chest felt tight. That must have been really hard. Noah nodded. I was scared. I know, Sarah said. But you're not alone in this. From upstairs, there was the faint sound of a shifting mattress. Mark turned in his sleep. The sound cut through the room like a thin blade. Noah stiffened. Does this mean you and Dad are going to split up? Sarah's breath caught. She hadn't allowed herself to think that far yet. I don't know, she said honestly. Whatever happens, you and Emma come first. Always. Noah seemed to relax just a little. Okay? They sat together for a moment longer. Then Sarah stood and pulled him into a hug. He hesitated, then leaned into her, his head resting against her shoulder like it used to when he was small. I love you, she said. I love you too, he whispered. When he went upstairs, Sarah stayed at the table. The mug of tea had gone cold. She replayed Noah's words in her mind, but she didn't let herself imagine more than he had seen. She refused to fill the gaps with fear. Instead, she thought about the past few months. Mark's late nights, his phone always on silent. The way he seemed distracted during dinner. How he smiled at messages but frowned at bills. How he talked less and listened even less. None of it had seemed like proof before. Now it lined up. Too neatly. Sarah stood and walked to the sink, pouring the cold tea away. She rested her hands on the counter and stared at her reflection in the dark window. She looked older than she felt, tired but still standing. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she remembered the early years. How Mark had waited for her after work with takeout because she was too tired to cook. How he used to reach for her hand without thinking. How safe she had felt. She wondered when that safety had slipped away. Upstairs, Mark slept, unaware that the quiet he depended on had finally spoken. Sarah turned off the kitchen light and stood in the darkness for a moment. She knew one thing now, with painful clarity. Whatever the truth was, it had already entered their home through the eyes of their son, through a park on Maple Street, through a silence that could no longer protect them. And as she walked slowly toward the stairs, she understood that the hardest part wasn't what she would say to her husband. It was knowing that childhood had ended a little too soon for Noah. Simply because he loved his mother enough to wait for the right moment to speak. Sarah did not sleep that night. She lay on her side, facing the window, watching faint light move across the ceiling as cars passed outside. Mark slept beside her, his breathing slow and even. That sound, once comforting, now felt distant, like it belonged to someone she used to know. Her mind moved fast. Too fast. She thought about Noah's face at the table, the way he tried to be strong. She thought about the park, the bench, the woman whose name she did not know. She thought about how long things had been breaking without noise. When morning came, Sarah got up quietly. She made breakfast, packed lunches, moved through the routine like muscle memory had taken over. Came downstairs, kissed Emma on the head, poured coffee, and checked his phone. He smiled at the screen. Sarah noticed. They spoke about small things. Whether school, a meeting Mark had later. Nothing important. Everything important. After the kids left, the house felt empty again, but this time the quiet was sharp. Sarah stood in the living room, arms crossed, and let herself feel it. The hurt, the anger, the confusion. She didn't rush to call anyone. She didn't cry. She needed to think clearly. She replayed the past year in her mind, not looking for blame, just truth. The distance hadn't come from nowhere. They had both changed. Work had taken more time. Conversations had become short. Touch had become rare. Somewhere along the way, they stopped choosing each other on purpose. That evening, Sarah cooked dinner like usual. Mark came home late again. He apologized without looking at her. They ate as a family. Noah watched them closely. Sarah met his eyes once and gave him a small nod. He looked relieved. After Emma went to bed and Noah disappeared into his room, Sarah turned to Mark. "Can we talk?" She asked. Mark froze for half a second. Then he nodded. "Sure." They sat on opposite ends of the couch, space between them where closeness used to live. Sarah didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. She spoke carefully, each word placed with control. "I know there's someone else," she said. Mark's shoulders dropped. He stared at the floor. "How?" he asked. "That doesn't matter," Sarah said. "What matters is that it's true." He rubbed his hands together. "It's not what you think." Sarah almost laughed, but stopped herself. "Then tell me what it is." Mark took a long breath. "It's not physical," he said. "I swear. But it crossed a line. I talked to her when I should have talked to you." The words hurt, but not in the way Sarah expected. They didn't shock her. They confirmed something she already felt. "How long?" she asked. "Months," Mark admitted. "It started at work. Just conversations. Complaints. Jokes. Then, more how?" Sarah asked. "More personal," he said. "More honest than I was being at home." Sarah nodded slowly. "What? So you gave her the parts of you that belonged to us." Mark looked up then, eyes wet. "I didn't mean to." "But you did," Sarah said. "And our son saw you." "That broke him," Mark covered his face. "Noah, he saw you at the park," Sarah said. "He waited to tell me because he didn't want to hurt me." Mark's breath shook. "I never wanted that, but it happened," Sarah said. "And that matters." They sat in silence. Not angry silence. Heavy silence. "I felt invisible," Mark said quietly. "At home. At work. Everywhere." She listened. Sarah nodded. "I stopped listening, too. I won't pretend I didn't." Mark looked surprised. "You're not blaming me?" "Blaming the distance," Sarah said. "And the choices we both made when we noticed it?" Tears slid down her face then. She didn't wipe them away. "What do we do now?" Mark asked. Sarah thought of Noah, of Emma, of the years behind them and the years ahead. "That depends," she said. "Are you willing to let go of her completely?" "Yes," Mark said quickly. "I already did." "Are you willing to be honest even when it's uncomfortable?" She asked. "Yes." "Are you willing to do the work, not just say sorry?" Sarah asked. Mark nodded. "I am." Sarah leaned back. "Then we try. Slowly, carefully, and if we can't fix it, we end it with respect." Mark reached for her hand. She let him take it, but she didn't squeeze back. Upstairs, Noah listened from his room, heart pounding. He heard the quiet voices, the pauses. He didn't hear shouting. That gave him hope. Over the next weeks, things changed. Not magically, not easily, but honestly. Mark stopped hiding his phone. He came home earlier. He talked more. Not just about work, but about fear, regret, confusion. Sarah listened. She shared too. About feeling lonely, about missing the man he used to be, about being tired of being strong all the time. They argued sometimes. Real arguments. But they stayed in the room. They didn't shut down. They didn't. Noah watched them carefully. He noticed the effort. The way his parents sat closer again. The way they spoke with patience. It didn't erase what he saw in the park, but it softened it. One night, Sarah sat on Noah's bed. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Are you and Dad going to be okay?" Sarah smiled sadly. "We're trying. That's all anyone can do." "I'm glad I told you," Noah said. "So am I," she replied. Weeks turned into months. The house felt warmer. Not perfect, but real. Trust didn't come back all at once. It's rebuilt in small moments. Shared coffee, long talks, apologies followed by change. Sarah knew the story could have ended differently. She knew some wounds didn't heal. But this one, with care, might scar instead of break. One evening, Sarah and Mark walked through Maple Street Park together. They didn't sit on the bench. They kept walking. "This place used to mean something," Mark said. "It still does," Sarah replied. "It's just not what it used to." They walked on, side by side, choosing each other again, not because it was easy, but because it mattered. And back at home, their son slept peacefully, knowing that sometimes the truth hurts, but silence hurts more.